sources that a second person may be in custody. Now we're getting more reports, unconfirmed as of this hour, Rick, but we're getting more reports now from other sources that a second person may be in custody. Have the police said anything about whether they believe that piece of the investigation is still open?
Well, what we had heard was that there was a potential second suspect. You know, oftentimes after these major incidents, you'll have a lot of reports, and many of them turn out to be false. A lot of times there's confusion in the midst of things, and someone may be running from the scene who may be escaping with their life, and people might think that that person is running because they're fleeing the scene because they're somehow involved. We don't know. We're waiting for police to arrive here at this park to brief us and give us more information on the shooting itself. We've been told that there is no active investigation, no active search for a second shooter. That could mean that they have already captured a second person if someone was involved, but we haven't been able to confirm that yet, Megan.
I want to tell our viewers that President Obama was notified of the shooting this morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, that the FBI will be supporting local law enforcement on scene there. He was asked for his reaction. Jay Carney said, I don't want to relay that until we know more about what's happened. But obviously the president, as a father, feels enormous sympathy for the families and wants to do everything we can to support the state and local law enforcement during this very tragic event. He was also, Jay Carney specifically asked about whether assault weapons ban, whether that remains a commitment of the president. And the answer was yes, it does remain a commitment of his, but today is not a day to engage in the usual Washington policy debates. Go ahead, Rick.
We just got this source is Reuters, that an entire classroom of students is unaccounted for after this shooting. We were told that a kindergarten class might have been the scene of much of the gunfire. And if this is correct, then what that suggests is that an entire kindergarten class may have been gunned down in this horrible incident.
Rick Leventhal, stand by. See if we can get some more information, and we'll come back to you in a moment. The reporting seems to be coming together now from multiple sources now. 26 dead, including 18 children. An entire kindergarten class unaccounted for. A man wearing full camo, a black combat gear, and a military-style vest went into, we believe, a kindergarten classroom and opened fire with a Glock and a semi-automatic 9mm handgun. They said 100 shots were fired. That is the information as of this hour, but we have not yet confirmed any of this directly with the police, and that an entire kindergarten class is unaccounted for right now. Bill Daley is a former FBI investigator and senior VP and practice leader of Control Risks Security Consulting. Your thoughts on what we've heard so far?
Well, Megan, it is so much to absorb on several different levels, but from a law enforcement standpoint, what they're going through right now has to be horrific. I mean, these are people who are parents themselves, they're uncles, they're related to people perhaps even in the community. And to go to one of these scenes is very emotional for them as they carry out their duties. But one of the things we're hearing now is that there's potentially a second person. We don't know whether the person was actually complicit in carrying out this act or perhaps in some way provided some type of aiding and abetting of this individual who went into the school. Of course, we always go after why, the big why question. And I'm sure that will come out. But right now, it is a crime scene apparently that has now been put under control with the devastation that this person's left behind. But it will be up to the police to really put together what happened here, as well as what we're hearing maybe even at the perpetrator's home, which sounds like it could even be in New Jersey. What led this person to commit this act? You know, on the first blush, you say it sounds very personal, it sounds very specific. Why this school at that time? What is the connection? And there isn't even some suggestions, I think Rick mentioned, that perhaps it may have been a father or some relative. But, you know, we know in these cases, it's all confirmed. That we know there's a lot of information that floats around at this time between numbers and what happened. But I think the key thing here is that as they go through it, they want to make sure that they've secured the site. If there's a second person, get after who that person is. If there's another scene, such as apartment, and like we saw in Aurora, Colorado, you have to be concerned about that apartment, that location has not also become another crime scene. So there are a number of facets to this investigation, which is now going on as we speak. I
have a lot more I want to get to you, Bill, including the crime scene as we believe it's in place right now. I want to stand you by, though, because on the phone with us now we have Brenda Lubinsky, who is the mother of a student at Sandy Brook Elementary. Brenda, thank you so much for being here with us. How old is your child, and is he or she with you?
My daughter's 8, and she's in the next room, Sophia.
Thank God. How did you hear the news this morning?
We received a town-wide call from the school board that there had been a shooting and that all schools were on lockdown, but they didn't say where the shooting was. So, because we had an incident like this happen before, but there was a shooting near a school. It had nothing to do with the school. And then I received an AP text alert on my phone that there was a school shooting on Dickinson, and that's where my daughter's school is. So I immediately went to the school. There were hundreds of parents there. I talked to some parents I knew, and they said that there were children being carried out all bloody. They didn't know if they were dead. So I was in total panic, numb, until I saw my daughter coming with her teacher, Miss Martin, coming from the school to the firehouse, which is next to the school. And I grabbed her, and it is the happiest moment of my entire life. The happiest moment. But I now am being aware of the amount of children that were killed. And I'm devastated.
Did you have the opportunity to see the other parents at the firehouse waiting?
I saw other parents. I saw teachers. I talked to them. I said, what happened? Another mom that I knew, she said she was actually in the school. And I said, are your girls all right? She has 3 girls. She says, they're fine, but a masked gunman came in and just started firing, and that the principal is dead. I said, the principal is dead. This is a young, vivacious woman who loved her job. She was the best principal. Okay? And then it's just hard to believe in this small little town. You don't expect it anywhere. It's terrible when it happens anywhere. But in Sandy Hook, okay, if you see our quaint little downtown, okay, typical Americana, for this to happen here, it's terrible.
How is your daughter? I mean, she's 8 years old. How do you help her understand what's happened?
She's right here. She's okay. She's in shock. They didn't know what was happening until they got into the firehouse, and lots of kids were crying, and they realized what was going on. But I still don't know my friends' children, if they're okay. You know, I tried to call some people, and they're not answering their phones. So.
What is the average class size, would you say, in this elementary school?
Probably 16, 17.
So when you hear...
It's a lot of students, but it's a small community school.
I mean, when you hear 18 children have died and an entire kindergarten classroom is unaccounted for, would that make sense to you in terms of the numbers?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, you know a lot of people in this school. You know the mothers. You know how it is when you have a child in school. You see the other mothers and the fathers as you drop your kids off and you pick them up, and the community revolves around the school, especially elementary schools to a large extent. Right. I mean, how do you function? How do you function? How do you go on from here?
Well, personally, I feel guilty even talking to you and to the other news outlets, because I feel I should respect the family, because I still don't know who was killed. I don't know if they're friends of mine or friends of my daughter's. So, I really, I just, it's hard. I feel terrible, especially around Christmas time. It's devastating.
That's the thing. I mean, we're in the middle of Hanukkah. We are 11 days from Christmas.
Right. Exactly.
And now, you know, it appears we're waiting for the official police news conference, but it appears that 26 people are dead, including 18 children. Had there been any reports of trouble, any parent making trouble, anyone that, you know, how sometimes in a small community people are concerned about one guy who turns out to be a problem?
Stuff. No, not at all. Nothing. And that's, in the school, you have to buzz yourself in. You know what I mean? You have to buzz, and then the secretaries can see you, and they buzz you in. So I don't know if this is somebody they recognized, you know, and let him in, and then he covered his head, because I don't think they would let somebody in who was masked already. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Brenda, I thank you so much, and I am so happy for you that your little girl is okay. All the best to you and your family.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. Bye.
Again, I just want to bring you the latest. We are getting some new reports now. We are hearing the press conference may be delayed just a bit. Obviously, they were supposed to start it at 1, and then we were told within the hour. So we believe at some point soon we will be hearing from law enforcement, and we will, of course, bring that to you. I want to get right to Trace Gallagher, who's got an update now live from our breaking news desk. Trace?
And remember, we told you, Megan, about that purple van. We don't know if this is connected, but now CBS News is reporting that a second shooter has been taken into custody. The report was earlier we had a second shooter has now been taken into custody. This is per CBS. NBC News has also just reported this. We are working to confirm. We mentioned earlier that police SWAT teams had surrounded a purple van in Danbury, which is just a few miles away from Sandy Hook, Sandy Hook. And now we're being told that, in fact, there is a second gunman in custody. Now, keep in mind, there also are reports out there that one of the gunmen walked in there, as we mentioned earlier, that had military-style camouflage as well as a bulletproof vest and body armor. And now there are reports, Megan, that there were 4 weapons involved in this. Unclear if there are 2 weapons per shooter, how the second shooter fits in. Earlier, there were reports that someone had actually been pulled out by police from the woods nearby the school, and that person was wearing camouflage pants. And as soon as they pulled that man out of the woods, he turned to the police and the parents who were there, or the adults who were there, saying, "I didn't do it, I didn't do it." So it's unclear if that man might be connected to this. We're working to confirm this, but now the reports are from 2 networks that there is a second shooter that has been taken into custody, Megan.
All right, stand by, Trace. I want to get back to Bill Daley. So what does that tell you? 2, because that's what other news outlets are, how they are describing the second person. It could just be a second suspect. I don't know. I don't know whether they actually believe this person fired shots. And
we're working to confirm this, but now the reports are from 2 networks that there is a second shooter that has been taken into custody, Megan.
All right, stand by, Trace. I want to get back to Bill Daley. So what does that tell you? 2, we're using the term second shooter because that's what other news outlets are, how they are describing the second person. It could just be a second suspect. I don't know. I don't know whether they actually believe this person fired shots and is involved.
Take that. I mean, there's someone who appears
describing this
that has been taken into saying, "I didn't do it, I didn't do it." And that person was wearing camouflage pants. And as soon as they pulled that man out of the woods, he turned to the police and the parents who were there, or the adults who were there, saying, "I didn't do it, I didn't do it." So it's unclear if that man might be connected to this. We're working to confirm this, but now the reports are 2 networks that there is a second shooter that has been taken into custody, Megan.
All right, stand by, Trace. I want to get back to Bill Daley. So what does that tell you? 2, I mean, we're using the term second shooter because that's what other news outlets are, how they are describing the second person. It could just be a second suspect. I don't know. I don't know whether they actually believe this person fired shots and is involved.
And I think that, I mean, as much as there's a distinction there, I think we're talking about now this was someone who appeared.
No, I don't know whether they actually believe this person fired shots and is involved.
And I think that, I mean, as much as there's a distinction there, I think we're talking about now this was someone who appears to be complicit. I mean, they're suggesting by the arrest or the apprehension of this individual that he was involved in either conveying this person to the scene, conveying weapons. As much as there's a distinction there, I think we're talking about now this was someone who appears to be complicit. I mean, they're suggesting by the arrest or the apprehension of this individual that he was involved in either conveying this person to the scene, he was conveying weapons, he was supporting in some fashion. We don't know whether he was in the building or not, but this certainly provides another dimension to this because, as we've seen in the past in many of these cases, there are single individuals who have a certain event, who have a certain focus on what they want to do. There's some kind of personal connection that drives them to commit these acts, whatever that connection is, and sometimes it's very difficult for us to understand it. But in this case, I think that somebody who had willingly gone along and provided support, aided and abetted, if not actually committed the acts, is even more horrendous.
I want to bring, Bill, you and our viewers the latest information. This is from the Associated Press. This is according to the Associated Press, which is now reporting, citing a law enforcement official, that the attacker is a 20-year-old man. You heard Rick Leventhal mention that at the top of the hour, that there had been some reporting on scene. It was a 20-year-old man who was the shooter, again, from the Associated Press, with ties to the Connecticut school. An official saying that a gun used in the attacks is a .223 caliber rifle. And again, New Jersey State Police are searching a location in New Jersey that they believe is somehow connected to the shooting. Is it the home of the 20-year-old man? Is it the home of somebody else? We do not know, but I want to ask you, first of all, let me ask you about that weapon, Bill. Do you know what a .223 caliber rifle, does that tell you anything?
It just tells me that this is something that someone could have acquired in a number of different stores anywhere in the region.
What is that? Is that a shotgun, or is that
hunting and other purposes? So this doesn't suggest that it was what we've heard many in the past, that it is a automatic weapon per se.
And the semi-automatic 9mm and the Glock, those are both semi-automatic weapons,
that's right,
aren't they?
And those could shoot multiple rounds very quickly and be reloaded also very quickly.
I want to get to Washington for a moment. Stand by, Bill, because we're going to be needing you this hour, where our chief White House correspondent, Ed Henry, is standing by live with the latest from the White House. Ed.
Well, Megan, good to talk to you. Jay Carney just wrapped up his daily briefing. Very somber at the top. He said the president was informed in the Oval Office about 10:30 this morning that this shooting was taking place. He was informed by his Homeland Security advisor, John Brennan. Bottom line is Jay Carney was being very careful, and rightly so, to not get ahead of the facts in this case. He did say that the federal government, through the FBI, was working with state and local law enforcement officials to deal with the early stages of this investigation. He didn't want to confirm anything in terms of numbers or how this shooting played out. He also did not want to get into exactly how the president personally reacted to this, but clearly he noted the president's a father himself and realizes the depths of this tragedy. By the way, Megan, he added the president is very likely to come out some point this afternoon and address this tragedy, Megan.
And is it possible we will hear from the president himself directly today?
Yes, that's what Jay indicated, is that it's very likely. I think having been through this, unfortunately, before, where there's been tragedies like this, I've seen presidents, whether President Bush, President Obama, wait a little bit longer to make sure we get all the facts, figure out just how deep this tragedy is. Once they've got a better handle on all of that, Jay Carney indicated that later this afternoon, he said it was very likely we would see the president come out and address this, Megan.
And here's Jay Carney moments ago. Stand by.
At approximately 10:30 this morning, in the Oval Office, the president was notified by his Homeland Security advisor, John Brennan, of the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, at a school. The president is receiving regular updates as more information becomes available about this incident, and as the day proceeds, if we get more information and as we get more information, we'll certainly provide it to you.
All right, Ed Henry, we'll get back to you as news warrants from Washington. I want to tell you now that Fox News has independently confirmed that the shooter is a 20-year-old man. A 20-year-old man. We do not know whether he had a child in that school. We're told it was K through 4. Kindergarten usually is around 5 years old. It doesn't mean that he couldn't be the father of a student there. It seemed a little young, but we just don't know enough right now. And we are being told that the press conference is now expected within the next 40 minutes. Within the next 40 minutes, we will get the first briefing we've had from the people who actually know what happened, as at least better than anybody other than the victims at this hour. Joining me now, an important guest to this broadcast, and that's Dr. Keith Abloh, who's a psychiatrist and a member of our Fox News Medical Aid team. He joins me via Skype, and we took you via Skype, Doc, because we really need to hear from you today. I think everybody out there is feeling disconcerted, sad, scared, wondering if this is the society we live in, feeling for those parents and those little children. Can you help put it in any sort of perspective for us?
Well, as to the fear, Megan, and the shock, I understand, because the red line beyond which it seemed even the brazen or unhinged among us would not move keeps shifting. This now kindergartners, perhaps a classroom of them, they're unaccounted for, perhaps gone. And so this kind of shock registers with people in yet another way, because it seems like the unthinkable keeps moving into the sphere of our reality. I think people have to reach out to their kids. They have to tell them this is still, in terms of the probability of it visiting them, extraordinarily rare. And yet they should also tell them that these things don't come out of boogeymen, that these are sick, depraved people, and that there are ways that they can be identified sooner, and that we're going to work to find those ways, and then we should work to rebuild our mental health care system, because I'll tell you, in the end, there will be things that this person said to folks. There will be things that people shake their heads at and say, man, how did they not act on that? But we're really not prepared to act on that, because our system in the mental health care arena is so full of holes, so fragmented, so fragile, so underfunded. And so I think this should be a wake-up call to rebuild that. And then we should let kids help other kids. We should give them something to do with their grief and their fear, to reach out to these other families and these other kids and do something to try to reassure them and show them they care.
To channel their feelings and try to empower them in some way.
Yes.
You talk about the red lines, and that's well put. Even though you know there's depravity and there's evil in this society, you like to believe that there are lines that just don't get crossed. And yet, is there reason to believe that? I mean, a sociopath has no empathy, there's no feeling at all for their victims. And so the real question to you is, why have there not been more things like this in the past, and what is making them seem to come out now?
Well, you know, you and I have spoken about this before, both on and off the air, and I fear that our level of empathy, just as a culture, as a society, is being diminished by things like reality TV and like Facebook that seem to take people to a kind of fictional realm. I guess you could add gaming to that, computer games, such that I think now people feel less for one another. They can think of them almost as third parties or entertainment figures or animated creatures. And for the people among us who are vulnerable to acts of violence, who are violently ill, if you will, that means that they can consider others even less than ever before. So if in general our capacity to resonate with each other's feelings is being reduced, as I believe it is, then the outliers are that much less able to feel anything, and that red line will keep shifting. And sadly, precedent is a terrible thing for people who are inclined toward violence, because what it does is it moves the bar. And so once you've had one shooting in a kindergarten, and I hate to even say it, and yet as a scientist I know it, there can be others.
And yet people have to remember what you said at the top, which is very true, and that is statistically the odds of something like this happening to your child or your family are infinitesimal. I mean, think of the number of students who go to school every day and have for decades in this country, and the number of times such a tragedy as this has unfolded. I do want to ask you if there's any way of moving forward for these families. Everyone here is feeling for these families, for the families of all 26 dead. That's the number now, 26 dead, we're being told, 27 total if you count the gunmen, 18 of whom are children. I know you say give the children something to do, try to turn it around, but you know, to the mothers and the fathers and the brothers and the sisters of those 18 children, I mean, I just don't know how you would wake up tomorrow and have your breakfast and function in this world.
Well, that's the best thing, by the way, Megan, that you could tell them. And that's what I would tell them in this office. I cannot fathom the depth of your grief. I give you credit for your courage. I think that somewhere out of your incredible wound could come extraordinary sensitivity such that you would be an incredible gift to other people in life. And yet I hesitate to even ask that of you, knowing now how much you're suffering, and yet I know that that's possible for you. But I don't pretend to know everything you're feeling, and I invite you to tell me. Please tell me, because silence is the enemy of healing here.
You know, sadly, they will have 17 other families of children to comfort them. And, you know, that is not to diminish the reports of the deceased adults who had families. And you heard that one mother's testimonial about this principal, young and vibrant, a young woman. And so often, sometimes the adults and the victims get overlooked in a situation where there are mass casualties with children. But each loss is profound. And, you know, the odds are those dead adults had families too. Please don't go away, Doc, because we need you. We need you, this show. And there's a lot of information that's going to be coming out as well as we hear from the police for the first time. I want to stand you by. We still got Bill Daly here. I want to get live, though, to Trace Gallagher, who's at the breaking news desk. He's got some more information now on a new news development in terms of a home that is being searched near the shooting scene. Trace?
And it kind of goes hand in hand with the news we brought earlier, Megan. This is important because we had talked about a second person being questioned in this, and there were some networks calling him a shooter or a suspect, and we don't know either of those. We do know, in fact, we have confirmed that a second person is being questioned. We do not yet know if that person has been taken into custody or arrested, but certainly has been questioned. And there are reports that it was, in fact, the man who we said earlier was walked out of the wooded area by that school and was wearing camouflage pants, and then turned to a parent and said, "I didn't do it." That is the person who apparently now is being questioned. No word if he's a suspect or simply a person of interest. On top of that, as you said, there is now a home reportedly being searched in Newtown, and that home being searched, authorities say, is connected to this shooting in some capacity. Again, we talked about a purple van being surrounded earlier by authorities. We have not heard anything else about that van. We are getting a little bit more information, Megan, about the chain of events, about apparently what happened is the shooter went into the principal's office first, because when the shooting happened, the morning announcements were underway, and apparently the rest of the school could hear the violence and the shooting over the school intercom. And as you said, as far as class size, we have confirmed there are 2 kindergarten classes at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Both of those classes have 17 students each in there. We now know that 18 children have been killed. The numbers apparently are very much in sync, and an entire kindergarten class remains unaccounted for. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Just want to bring you this information from Washington. They are saying, 2 sources now saying, which is not unexpected, that this is not believed to be terrorism, as we've come to understand that term in this country. Clearly, it was terrorism of some kind for these families and the victims, but it was not terrorism by, as we know it in this term, by some jihadist group trying to terrorize Americans. And we'll try to get some more information on that from our D.C. Bureau, but that is what we're being told. Indeed, what we believe right now, what Fox News has confirmed, that a 20-year-old gunman walked into that school this morning, Sandy Hook Elementary School. And initial reports had said he went first into the administration office, and then there had been other reports that he went directly to a kindergarten. What we now believe, as we await the official word from police, is that he walked into a kindergarten classroom and took out any place between 2 and 4 weapons, at least 2 of which were semi-automatic weapons, was wearing all black, was wearing combat gear, had a military-style vest on, and started shooting. Let's go right to the presser. Well, I don't understand whether this is the presser or this is just the prelim. Let's listen. They're just testing the microphones, and we're going to get the information shortly, we believe.
Horrified by what's happened. He is meeting with the families right now.
We're going to pause for 1 moment to let our Fox News stations join us now.
That's why he's not here.
This is Fox News coverage of the deadly school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. I'm Megan Kelly in New York. We are now getting our first briefing from the officials on scene. Let's listen.
We understand that you are all interested in information. We'd like to get you that information as quickly as possible, but the governor's chief concern is making sure that the families have information as quickly as possible, and that's where he is now. This is Lieutenant Paul Vance from the State Police.
Hi, good afternoon. I will give you some very basic and brief information as we know it now, and we will set up regular press briefings as appropriate. Just after 9:30 this morning, Newtown Police received a 911 call for an emergency at the elementary school. Newtown PD, upon obtaining information as to the stature of the situation, contacted the Connecticut State Police and requested assistance from state police and surrounding local police departments. On and off duty troopers responded to the school, and with Newtown Police, immediately upon arrival, entered the school and began a complete active shooter search of the building. That included checking every door, every crack, every crevice, every portion of that school. Our main objective was to evacuate as quickly and efficiently as possible any and all students and faculty in the school. The entire school was searched. That was accomplished. A staging area was set up. The students and staff were put into that staging area, and soon thereafter the children and staff were reunited with their parents and their loved ones. There were several fatalities at the scene, both students and staff. There is no information relative to that that is being released at this time until we've made complete and proper notification. The shooter is deceased inside the building. There's a great deal of work that is undertaken immediately upon locating the shooter, and that is there's a great deal of search warrant activity, there's a great deal of law enforcement activity both in and out of state to ensure that we cover all the bases relative to that specific individual. Suffice it to say, the scene is secure. State Police Major Crime Squad, Newtown Police Department, Danbury State's Attorney, and many agencies are working together to answer all the questions surrounding exactly what happened. As Mr. Ochoa-Grosso said, we will keep you briefed, we will keep you informed on a regular basis. We will put everything out via our website and with these press conferences. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Ochoa-Grosso right now.
The governor took a call from President Obama a little while ago, who was calling to express his condolences and condolences on behalf of the nation, and pledged whatever resources the federal government can bring to bear to assist the families and to assist in the investigation. We will get you information as soon as we can get the families the information. That's where the governor is. At some point later today, the governor will be here, and we will set up regular briefings. Thank you.
Are all those briefings going to be reports of a second shooter that's in custody or a second suspect? Can you talk to that, please?
Again, no questions at this time. I apologize. We will not be able to answer any questions. As I said, the scene is secure. The situation is secure. We will notify you shortly when we will come back for another briefing. As quickly as we can.
But you didn't say that the public is not in danger.
The public is not in danger, that's correct.
Hey, Lieutenant, everything here, right? All the briefings here?
Right here.
How many fatalities are there?
And precious little information coming from the scene of a devastating school shooting this afternoon in Newtown, Connecticut, where authorities simply confirming that there have been several fatalities, including students and staff at the Sandy Hook Elementary School this morning. The distress call came in just shortly after 9 a.m. Eastern Time. They did confirm that the shooter is deceased in the building. We are working to track down reports still of a second suspect somehow involved in this, who we believe is being questioned by law enforcement at a second location. We are trying to track that down and confirm exactly what, if any, role that person may have had in all of this. You heard the law enforcement officer there, Lieutenant Paul Davis of the State Police, say they do not believe that the public is in danger, but that they are pursuing search warrant activity and law enforcement activity in and out of the state. At this hour, we have confirmed independently, obviously not through that news conference, that 27 people are dead, including the gunman. 26 victims, 18 of whom are children. We believe that the vast majority, if not all of those children, were in a kindergarten class inside of this elementary school when a 20-year-old man, Fox News has confirmed, went into that school and started shooting at least 2 weapons, which we were told were semi-automatic handguns, including a 9mm and a Glock. We will bring you more as we get it. Please stay tuned to Fox News Channel and to this Fox station for continuing coverage of this story. I'm Megan Kelly in New York. Want to get right now to Rick Leventhal, who is live near the school at a park where the police just held that presser. Rick, we didn't learn a lot of new information, but we did get confirmation that the shooter is deceased and remains inside the school.
And the other key point there, the public not in danger. They wouldn't address. I asked about a second possible suspect in custody. You heard the state police would not confirm that. We are being told by other sources that a person is being questioned by authorities here in Connecticut, but that we're told not to say the person has been arrested or even taken into custody yet. It could be someone who they were concerned might be connected somehow and may not be. But as you heard the police say, there are a number of law enforcement activities taking place right now, including search warrants being served on homes. We're told one of those homes may be in Connecticut, another may be in New Jersey, and we're also told that the shooter has tentatively been identified as a 20-year-old male. The police would not get into the numbers, but Megan, we have to remember we're roughly 4 hours, just 4 hours since this mass shooting occurred, so there's a lot that they still can't put together yet. they're still very early in this investigation, and as we said earlier, the crime scene is very, very difficult at this point for them to process because apparently there are so many victims. The police wouldn't confirm the number, but we have been told independently by multiple sources, including federal agents, that there may be as many as 27 dead. That includes possibly 18 children, 8 adults, and the shooter, as well as the principal of Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Rick, thank you. We'll get back to you momentarily. That would make this one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history. There were 32 dead at Virginia Tech. Now we're being told the number is 26 victims, plus the shooter makes 27 at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in connection with this case. Those are preliminary numbers as we continue to await official confirmation from those who are on the scene. You can understand why they don't want to give too many details, as I'm sure there are a lot of families going through a lot right now, trying to figure out whether their child is among the dead. Bill Daly's back with me. Bill, what did you hear as a law enforcement officer, former FBI guy, and they said that the FBI is now assisting the local law enforcement with this per the White House. What did you pick up on during that conference?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as much as we all like to hear more information from police at times like this with details, I think they were very prudent. The way they approached this is not to be too much ahead of the curve, is to be very conservative, notify the next of kin, understand what really is happening before they say anything. So I think from their standpoint, they did well. From our standpoint, we're still wondering what else is going on. But I can tell you, from a law enforcement perspective, you know, it is quite inspiring the fact that within a few hours is that they move very quickly. They move very quickly in a number of different fronts. They probably getting subpoenas. The FBI is assisting local law enforcement in perhaps even going through across state lines, which is the FBI's jurisdiction, in trying to get more information about this individual, or, as what may be suggested, another individual that they're still questioning. One interesting note I pulled out of this, the comments by the lieutenant who was speaking, and it may not mean that it is certainly, you know, a fact, but he didn't say when they went in to search the school that they confronted the gunman. So, it starts to suggest that the gunman was already deceased when they entered the school, as he went through his walkthrough of what they did room by room and gathering the children, gathering the staff, and taking them to a safe area to then get them out of the school. So I don't know whether that tells us something about either the gunman having taken his own life, but the sad case about this, as I hear more about it, is that this gunman went into the school and had free reign. There was no one there to stop him. We don't appear to be any security people until the police arrived. They had some security systems in place that perhaps may have been gotten around, or perhaps they even may have known this person when he first showed up without the mask over his face. We don't know. But he was in there for a period of time, left on his own with automatic weapons and children and staff.
And 5-year-olds.
That is the most horrific thing of all.
I mean, I know you're not a psychiatrist, Bill, but you've been in law enforcement a long time. And how do you start to understand how somebody puts on a military-style vest, dresses in combat gear, takes at least 2 semi-automatic handguns, and goes in there and starts executing 5-year-olds?
You know, emotively, you say you just would, you can't connect with this. You have to almost, as law enforcement, take a step back. They're processing the scene with all of these children who apparently have been deceased.
But how do you understand it, Bill? How do you understand that? I mean, have you seen something like that? I mean, is it just a sociopath is a sociopath, and someone who could take a life, that's who they are? I mean, in your history, how do you understand that kind of evil?
The thing is that you can't. You say there is good and evil, and people have chosen evil. There's evil in this world. This is evil incarnate. There's evil out there, and that's why the good people and the people who stand up for what's right and the people who stand up for supporting each other, for looking out after each other, are the ones who are good and fight that evil. That evil is always there, and that's why we have law enforcement, that's why we have teachers, we have other people out there in the front trying to identify that evil before it hurts our children. Sometimes that evil net doesn't catch everyone, and it isn't as solid as we'd like it to be. But we know that as a result of this, people need to go off and be doing good things and continue to be doing good things to help each other and help society, because otherwise the evil will take over.
Stand by, Bill. Joining us now by phone is Beth Nemo. She lost her child, her daughter, Rachel, in the Columbine shooting. Her son survived. Beth, thank you very much for being here. We need your perspective as well today. Your thoughts as we wonder what these parents are going through.
Well, my first reaction, Megan, was I'm extremely angry. So angry that a man would kill babies. I mean, these are babies, and as far as the parents go, they're not going to know what hit them for a long, long time. I think with the Columbine shooting, of course, my son Craig survived, but Rachel didn't, and it was like there were times when it was very real, and other times it was surreal, and you didn't really know that it happened in your mind. You kind of block out the pain of that and the anguish of that. And I know for at least a year, possibly more, there were times when I just was going through the motions of having lost Rachel, and also having to deal with a very emotionally crippled young man because two of his friends died right beside him, and he witnessed all of the violence, and then only to discover that his sister was the first one that was killed. So my heart's racing. My heart's racing, and I feel like these parents, they're just going to hurt so bad for so long, and there's not much you can do to console them for losing a little child like this, and it makes me very angry. It makes me extremely angry.
I mean, in the same way that your daughter and your son were totally defenseless, these children were totally defenseless. I mean, yes. The most defenseless you could find, really, on this earth. Little 5-year-olds sitting in a classroom just trying to learn. And one presumes that their teacher is also dead, but we don't know that. I shouldn't presume that. But we are told that there are 26 innocent victims in all of this, including the 18 children. Beth, is there any, I mean, did you find happiness again?
You know what? We did. But it came much, much later. But there does come a day when you don't cry all day long. There does come a day when the severe pain and loss isn't so evident, and it's not so penetrating. It's not just right in your face. But it takes such a long, long time to get to that point. I do want to offer hope, but right now these parents can't imagine hope. All they understand is the trauma and the loss. And even though people are so kind to say, you know, things will get better, the truth is that's not a reality to them at this point in time. It won't be a reality for a very long time because you can't get past the pain. And it does, but it took years to get there. There came a day when I laughed again, and talking about Rachel, I could talk about her without bursting into tears or have a flood of emotions come up. And we found some good things to do. We channeled our energy and our anger for what had happened and into something positive with school programs and things like that. So we were able to take Rachel's legacy and use it for something very positive, which did bring forth healing. But these children are too little all to have anything like that. What these parents are going to remember is just their little birthdays, their little moments as little children, and it's going to be extremely difficult. My heart is just broken for them. It's just broken. I wish I could just hug on them, but there's no shortcuts. There's just no shortcuts to getting through something of this nature.
You know, if there's anybody who can do something, Beth, maybe it's somebody like you. Maybe it is somebody who has been through it, who has walked through the pain, as they say, and gotten to the other side. I know Columbine happened almost 13 years ago now.
Yes,
and so it's been some time, but there is some comfort in victims of tragedy to see others who have been through it and who have emerged and found some sort of peace and some sort of happiness. And we appreciate you giving us the perspective that that is at least possible for the victims of the families of the victims of these tragedies. Beth, thank you so much, and all the best to you and your family.
Thank you, Megan.
There's a lot of news unfolding still on this tragedy at this hour. We are getting more details about the gunman right now on our wires, and we expect to learn shortly, most likely, who this was. We'll be back momentarily with an update from the scene and more on that. Please stay with us.
Experience the motion picture event everyone is talking about. Lincoln is a masterpiece.